Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you how excited I am to talk to this individual about one of the best Disney Plus shows this year in Daredevil Born Again. I am talking about the editor of Born Again, Stephanie. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. I always do this. So I'm going to give you your flowers first. Congratulations for being in the Academy officially.
Thank you so much. I'm still in shock.
We need it. We as a collective need it. But I mean, it was weird because we had a random conversation sometime last year. It's like, man, like really need to kind of nail down what this actually means, and you're doing it. So congratulations on that.
Thank
Just to give you a little bit of insight, everyone, you see it here. It says 5 nominations and 3 Emmys, but this is actually incorrect. This is actually 7 nominations and 4 Emmy wins. So just to course correct that, I want you guys to know. You can see some of her accolades right here, most notably Black Lady Sketch Show, Dahmer, and I can promise you this, she's going to get some other accolades very soon with Daredevil and among other things. She is just also, I think, to Tribeca for Horse Girls, correct? That is something you just worked on, and I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. The other thing that just came out recently, because I'm a part of Black Reel Awards, I'm gonna definitely shout that out. She has also been nominated for Outstanding Editing for episode 8, Odds of Joy, and so for your consideration, she is all that in a bag of chips, which is the reason why I had to nerd out and talk about it. Because the last time we talked, I was really formal. I didn't really get into the meat and potatoes of this. So I'm really thankful for talking with you about this. I just want to make sure you got the record straight. Now we can go ahead and get into the nitty gritty of all this. All right. So first up for me, were you initially, and I know that there's other things that work when this show was even being conceived, and the during even the inception of it, of how they were actually going to do it. Initially, it was more so like, okay, this is going to be a remake. This is going to be completely different because this is something that now is going to be thrust into the MCU, so it had to make sense. And then things kind of changed. But I was really going to ask you, like, were you initially a fan of the original Netflix series? Was that something that you even had an interest in initially beforehand, before even getting on this project?
Yeah, I loved the Netflix series. I was a huge fan when it first came out. I feel like I've watched and rewatched it a few times since then. Um, and so when this project was coming up and I had like the opportunity to interview for it, I was just really excited because I was already a huge fan.
So you were already invested like me. I'm gonna nerd out for a second, so I apologize, but I am
Nice.
all the way there. I remember 2015, as soon as it dropped, I was like, oh man, I don't know how this is gonna be. I remember, the original one that came out, I think 2005. But it was kind of like I like the director's cut of that, but I was like, can they really make this a show? And then it just took off. And then Jessica Jones came out, and I just was in love ever since after that point. But I
Mhm.
think that when Disney Plus was talking about the idea of doing this, I was like, there's not any, rated R shows. There's not any like hardcore shows. So was there ever a point when you kind of got brought into this with the expectation like, oh, this may be a little dumbed down? Or was there ever a hope in your head that like, we're going to just go and see where this actually lands and we just go for it?
I mean, I think the fight scenes were still brutal, at least in the initial version of the show. Like one of my first episodes was the bank episode where he like spoilers, but he like very much destroys a man's leg. But there's other episodes where there's lots of like bone breaks or someone falling in front of a train or it was still brutal. But I think the original version of it was just like a different direction at first. So when we first started, it was more of a like kind of a crime procedural. Um, so it had still the fighting and everything, but it felt more like an episodic like crime drama in a way, and a legal drama. And so I think like something people don't realize is like the original episodes were actually good. It was just like a very different, just a different version of the show. And so at the time we were just kind of trying to find what that tone would be exactly. But it was still dark.
Okay. I was really curious about that because it was like there was a trade-off, I think, with two showrunners initially, and then it ended up switching over. And that was a really huge lift. But how much from an editing lift was that actually for you? Like, was it a certain amount that was already completely done and like it was supposed to be this, and then it transitioned to something completely different and they had to add on to that? How was that as far as the heavy lift for you with that transition?
It was a massive overhaul on the edit, or like on our part, just because we had like 5.5 episodes at that point, but 5.5 very different tonally episodes. And so a lot of the scenes got moved around or repurposed. So like, for example, there's like a Matt Punisher scene in episode 4 where he goes to see him in his lair. And that scene used to be in episode, I think, 6. And it was about Muse. Like it was not about what it's about now at all. So in the edit, we had to go like repurpose that. There's things like at the end of that same episode 4, the original version, Matt just went up to the roof to his tool shed and used his billy clubs. So the whole Adam storyline, like Fisk with his dungeon, that was all new. So basically, at the end of episode 4, it's now intercut between the old elements, the tool shed, and the Fisk dungeon reveal.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a big, I think it was just like an all hands on deck trying to kind of figure out how the puzzle pieces could fit. And also, there was like a new style to the show as well. So it's like recutting those scenes to try to match the new style as well.
Wow, that's insane. The thing I'll say that I give you all the compliment on, and again, you had an amazing team, kind of working towards this. I mean, I think it's Hillary and Pedro as far as being the DPs on this. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the shots from the first to second episode and these very interesting parallels between Matt and Fisk and kind of who they're trying to be versus what they're trying to escape from who they were. And then they finally round out right around the sweet spot episode where Matt kind of becomes Daredevil again around episode 6. And it was kind of like this perfect transition that happens for both Fisk and Matt in their collective fights. And so I think that the way that you guys did it was almost near perfect because I felt like that was the whole build off from the whole entire first episode to the 6th episode. And from that point now, you never necessarily change, but you can be very different. And I think that was a really invoking thing. But as far as episode 6, that transition fight scene, which was telling so much, how was that? How was like getting the shots and putting those together and making it as fluid as it was?
Well, that episode actually was cut by a different editor, Cedric Nairn-Smith,
Okay.
who did just an amazing job on that episode. I really love that intercut. But we played a lot, all of us, with intercuts in our episodes, and just kind of finding those parallels with like where Matt and Fisk were in their lives, so that by the end, obviously, like you said, they've kind of succumbed to their nature.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just like an interesting journey because that was not something that was like in the scripts or anything like that. And I think it was just something once we started the overhaul that we're like, let's try this and see like what parallels we can draw. And at first you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense at all. Like these don't actually match. But then when you lay them to like side by side, you're like, oh, these are actually like mirroring moments. So it was kind of just a fun exercise.
Yeah, no, I really truly love that. The thing I did want to ask you about, and I think you brought it up, you got co-editors in Cedric and Melissa. How do you guys kind of work together through the episodes that you guys edit? Like, do you guys do talking points? Do you guys go through the storyboard and kind of hit it with different approaches of how you're going to work it? Or is it all kind of worked by the showrunner to kind of let you guys know this is what we need to prioritize? I don't know if Dario kind of instructs you guys. How does that work as far as between episodes with all three of you guys?
Usually, because we each have our own episodes and we kind of rotate, but usually what happens is like we definitely check in about like what's happening in our different episodes. But by the time we get to like screening the episodes, something that's really nice at Marvel is like they let you watch in as the other editors are screening their episodes, so you can kind of hear what the notes are, and you can hear like what story wise is changing. So it's just like a way to stay on top of it, which is kind of nice. And then we definitely like have our like massive group text that we like check in with each other all the time on. And sometimes even like if we're like, oh, is this shot being used somewhere else? Like, let me just make sure that this isn't like being purposed in for something else. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious like how the crosstalk worked and kind of how you guys kind of layer it, because I mean there's so much that's going on, and there's such an interesting transition that feels really natural and fluid, but I figured there's a lot of work that's behind it.
Yeah, so much is about like understanding what the character arcs are. So I think it's like that kind of stuff we'll check in on, and that's also where like the intercutting came in, where it's like, okay, I know by this episode this is like where this character needs to be, you know, just like character wise, right? And so we would kind of like build based on that. You know, by episode 8, that's like where Fisk fully steps into Kingpin in his white tux. So it's like I knew in my episodes like I had to like plant little seeds as they progress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Let's talk about episode 8, because dude, you killed it. Without nerding out, there's so much that's happening. I mean, one is the reintroduction to Poindexter. It is Matt at this point now. He's kind of like, not gonna say he's succumbed to his addiction, but he's kind of like just fed up with everything. He's fed up with the BS, and Fisk is thriving. And it all ends up at this amazing dance. And Matt makes a very interesting choice by the end of that dance. But it's just how you get there. Whether it was like visiting the prison or whether it was Poindexter doing or saying what he was doing, like it was so much in this. Can you kind of walk me through kind of how you brainstormed through it and what was the most fun part about editing this episode?
Well, my favorite character in this show is Poindexter, so I was really excited that I got some really good I got some really good scenes with him in that episode. But as far as like Matt's progression, I think like the biggest thing that like I know like our whole team kind of talked about is like that episode needs to feel like he's like on tilt, right? Like he's been building up to this, and then by the time he like finds out about this ball and like all this stuff is happening, and Poindexter's like in general population at Rikers, like um Matt needed to feel like this was like his sort of like unhinged moment. And so really like the pace of some of the moments is a little different, I think, than some other episodes, and he just really lets loose throughout the episode. There's actually, I think, I realized this the other day, there's like less b-roll in that episode, and it's kind of like built into scenes, because the episodes as you're going, there's like different transitional elements, and there are some in 8, but I think there's like less of those because like the pace is so fast of him becoming unhinged that like a lot of the b-roll that like you'll see there's a shot of him, kind of a wide shot of him outside of Josie's, where he's just like thinking, but it's like not actually b-roll, it's like him standing there. So he was kind of like built into the b-roll in an interesting way in that episode. And then like yeah, the gala just had to feel as like that was the penultimate like moment of him like finally being in the same room as Fisk, and like Fisk realizing he's in the same room as Matt, and just yeah, it was just about like figuring out how to build that tension, and also like with, you know, kind of like a really in an absurd way, because you're like at this gala and you're hearing like wedding band type music, like um, so just finding ways to play with like the weirdness of it was really fun.
Yeah, I truly did not know what was going to happen. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the original Daredevil series. Like, you know, when we got to like the second season of Daredevil, when Punisher shows up and you don't know where it's gonna go. I felt that throughout the whole entire episode. Like I really didn't know, would Matt break cover? Would he go and let Vanessa die? Like really just truly did not know. And down to the shot, like the actual bullet penetrating Matt, like it I just really had no idea where I was gonna go. And I think that what was so well done as far as acting with Matt and Benson is like Wilson's look on him, like, did he just do that? Like
Yeah,
what? What just happened?
his face, that's like my favorite expression he's ever made. It's so just wild.
He did not know what to do with it. But I mean, talking about Poindexter, God, he was next level. He was next level, and I think that one of the things that all of us wanted that enjoyed the original series is seeing his character come to fruition, him becoming Bullseye in some way, shape, or form, whatever that actually looked like. And you know, at the end of I think the third season, at the very end, you see that he's alive and getting a little surgery, but you're like, is he going to show back up? Lo and behold, the first episode is like him, you know, unfortunately doing the unthinkable. And it was such a cool transition getting into this episode from the first episode that you're like, yeah, I understand why Matt is like this. I truly understand. Foundationally, like, he is rock to his core. But yeah, I was going to ask you, what was one of the most challenging episodes to edit?
The hardest for me was episode 4. I think that had the most surgery done to it. Even pre-overhaul, it was just one that because it's a day in the life episode, it was like always going to be challenging. It doesn't quite like match what the other ones are stylistically. And so even pre-overhaul, it was something that like we worked and reworked so many times. And then I think even during the overhaul, like we would do kind of conform edits. So it's like we would have what we used to have, and then we would rework scenes and then put like slates of like what should be shot or like potentially could be shot in there. And then finally, like at some point we cracked the code on the episode, but it took a really like a lot of work to figure out what it should be and what it should feel like, for sure. And there's definitely like lifted scenes from there. There's a different the old version had a different actress as Vanessa, actually. So
Really?
the therapy scenes in 4 are like all new. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, in the, you know, that ending intercut I mentioned before with Fisk going down to the dungeon, that storyline didn't exist before. The Angela at the morgue after White Tiger, that kind of stuff didn't exist. So it was really just kind of like figuring out like what worked and what didn't, and how to like rework what we had to match, which was like a fun exercise but intense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like from an emotional standpoint, it was the most emotionally charged episode up until that point. And I think the moment that, you know, I think is iconic is when, I mean, you know what? Before I even get there, like how Matt tracked him down, how that was shot, and how that was paced, and how you guys edited to the point where he walks across the corner, and then immediately, you know, you got John Bernthal shows up. Like the way y'all positioned that was excellently executed. But it kind of was like the foundation of this conversation too. And the way that the conversation paved the way of understanding Matt's psychosis was even better because he didn't truly understand, or he at least didn't accept it. And one person that understands pain and suffering and loss, of course, is the Punisher, Frank Castle. So I commend you guys because it felt so important and vital. If you had told me that was the one that needed to kind of change the most or work, you guys, it paid off. It truly paid off.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's interesting because originally, I mean, there was like a foggy conversation in there, but like originally it was like Matt walked in and like was talking about Muse and how there's a serial killer in the city, and like they had a whole conversation about that. And now I know it's about yeah, like you said, tracking down where Frank is. Like he found the bullet casing in the alleyway, and then and it had the Punisher logo, and then just like like going to Frank's lair. Like it was just fun, kind of building up to what that would be. So that was a fun time.
Nah, that's insane. So the next thing I was going to kind of go and talk about is just the team in general. I mean, I kind of mentioned Hillary and Pedro. I mean, you already mentioned Cedric and Melissa. How was it working with Dario as well as I think it was Justin and Aaron that kind of the primary directors through this? How was it working with them through this whole entire insane ride that now has given a lot of fruit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our whole team is just incredible on this show. Benson and Moorhead are just like fantastic directors and humans, and so it was just really nice to collaborate with them, and you know, Dario and Sana and Brad, all these people were just like really like fun to work with and collaborate with, and to like kind of try to crack the story with together. And then also like my assistant editors are just like the greatest ever. Lyric and Ivan, like they, like I'll work with them on like with them about the story constantly, but also they build out my temp sound design for me. They build out some temp VFX for me.
Okay.
So it's like they're kind of like I couldn't exist without those two. They're really amazing, and yeah, so they deserve their flowers.
Yeah, no, all you guys like truly have given us a gift. I think when what was it? I think it was when they actually did the show Echo, and you had the Punisher come up there, and that show was very much so rated R. Daredevil showed up in that, and I was kind of like, man, it would be amazing if Daredevil showed up. And now it's available to us, and now you guys are even getting the second season, which is insane. But I was gonna ask you, how has the ride been? Like, I mean, you guys were able to premiere it, you were able to kind of hear people's thoughts on it, and like, what has it invoked in you? Like, how has it felt for you? One, being a part of like Disney Plus history, technically, but I guess from a fan perspective, like, how have you looked at your work that's blessed other people? I guess.
I mean, I think that because I was already such a fan of the show, just like being able to work on the daily, like look at dailies and look at these different takes of the actors, like just made me appreciate the characters so much more even. And we started editing it like in March of 2023. So we worked on it for like 2 years. And so it's like finally when it was out, I think there's always this like feeling we're like, I hope people like it because like we worked on it for a long time and we worked really hard and we're all really proud of it. But it was just like really nice to see that it was received the way we had hoped.
Yeah, like I've heard a lot of people they were really scared. They were really scared that this was not going to work. And I think from a fan standpoint, since like Infinity War and Endgame, a lot of people is like hoping that some of these shows would kind of get that connective tissue. And one of the street level heroes is Daredevil. And I think when they first showed Charlie Cox in what was it, No Way Home, a lot of people was like, man, it'd be really cool for him to have his own show. And then, when Vincent D'Onofrio showed up in Hawkeye, it was like really cool. But now that it's actually here, it's kind of like you guys have set the tone, and I think that it's been a bright spot on the MCU from what you guys have done with this. So I
Oh,
could not tell you you've done an amazing job, and I appreciate the hard work.
well, thank you. I'm so glad.
Absolutely. Um, so I did want to ask you about, well, I know I can't go into the deep parts of it, but when you guys did get the green light for a season two, did you have to start immediately working and preparing, or did you guys get like a little bit of a lull and time to kind of regroup and figure it out, or was it immediately hit the ground running? Like, let's talk strategy, let's get into it. Like, did you have to immediately start back immediately?
Yeah, we went straight in. I think we finished in like last fall, last August or September, and then and it aired in March, but they actually started shooting in February, so we came back in February. Um, yeah, so we did have a little bit of a window in there, but yeah, they started right away.
Dog. Well, congratulations on that. I was gonna ask, what was the most exciting part about being now a part of, I guess, superhero fandom, the MCU, or just in general, like working on a character that you actually love, or a series that you actually loved previously? What was the most exciting thing about it?
Um, I think just like the potential of it, you know, like anytime you start on a show, you're like, okay, I hope it's going to be this and this and this, and you know, I'm going to make it into whatever I can. And I think just like starting on it and then like the journey that we had on it, it was really like exciting, like seeing it evolve over time. You know, like over 2 years, we kind of saw so many different versions of it, and like it's just really interesting as an editor, like to see all of our different versions of the episodes, but then also like what sticks and what doesn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Did you have a favorite moment from the original series, and then did you have a favorite moment just personally from this season?
Um, I mean, the original season or the original series, that hallway fight is like always going to be just like so incredible. I love that hallway fight, but this season I think my favorite was like the gala in general, just like the back half of that episode was so just like fun and amazing to work on, but also just like, you know, props to everyone who like Hillary who shot it and just Benson and Moorhead and the whole crew for making it look so pretty. It was like an honor just to be cutting this footage. So I would say that's my favorite, and then also because I love Poindexter so much, the tooth attack.
No, it was a gorgeous episode. I can't even fake on that. I think part of the thing I was wondering about, like from the original, and I think I agree with you as far as the hallway scenes. There's so many different ones. Like even like the third season where like Matt was trying to navigate through the prison. It's just insane. As far as the action side of this, what did that look like as far as edits and pacing? Like I assume that they had a storyboard of how they wanted the fights to go. And then maybe that changed over time, maybe yes or no, I'm not sure. But what did that look like as far as work with you? Like how did you make that work and add suggestion to how we can pace this out better or allow it to kind of naturally go through it? Were there moments where you're like, oh, we should let this play through a little bit. We shouldn't cut it here. Or this needs to be tightened up. How does that actually look from an action standpoint?
Um, well, usually, so our stunt coordinator, Phil Silvera, what he does usually is like he'll shoot a version of all the fight scenes on his own, just as like, just so you can see what the choreography is and stuff. Like it's amazing. He does like his own little, like fight scenes for us and like sends those. So that's really nice to be able to like reference back to. But a lot of the footage, you know, whatever's shot on the day of, it doesn't always match what he's temped. So those fights changed kind of over time, and also with the overhaul they changed. So like for example, the bank episode, the alley fight used to have a parade in the background of it. Like there was a lot going on in the background of it. There were fireworks. So basically, like I went and reworked that scene so there's no parade in there anymore. There's no fireworks anymore, and it's like more grounded. So the original version was like a bit more over the top with all this stuff in the background, and so that's like an instance where like the edit just had to be changed. Also in that episode, there's like the stairway fight, which used to just be in the stairway, but now it's kind of intercut between, I think it goes out to the street to the SWAT team, and it goes to the hostages a few times, like in between. So like those kinds of areas just for story get kind of adjusted over time. But yeah, it really just varies. It depends on the fight, I think.
That's actually interesting because I mean, you know, you watch like movies like John Wick and a lot of other movies that like Mr. Nobody, right, or Nobody that came out like 2 years ago, and like, how did they evenly pace it out, but at the same time keep the envisioned point where they did it? So no, that's really interesting. I was just personally curious about that myself. But yeah, no, this was a great first season. I'm excited for a second season. What is the next thing you're working on? I know you've got Horse Girls that currently is going through festivals, but what are the next thing you're towards, I guess, of what you could say? I'm sorry.
Well, right now I'm on season 2 of Daredevil, so that will be out. Early next year, and I don't know what comes after that, but I'll keep you updated.
Yes, I love it. Stephanie, I would love to talk more. I could talk more, but I'm not going to do that because you probably need to get some sleep, and so do I. But thank you so much for talking with me. Since I first learned about this, you guys, you just don't know. I've been waiting to talk about this, and I'm still holding it all in. I'm probably going to nerd out after this a little bit later on, try to keep it professional here. But I even when I found out that she was going to be attached to it, I knew that she was going to do it service. And the fact that she's also an original fan of what they were trying to do before, you can feel that. You can feel that passion with every single moment, that the things that she's worked on and designed as far as editing with the episodes she's done. I think she's done an amazing job. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for talking with me. Congratulations again, the Academy. Congratulations for all the accolades. And I can promise you this, more people will be talking about Daredevil very soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, you guys, we'll talk to you later. I'll leave in the description bar below all of her information. Stephanie, where can everybody find you though? What's the best place to find your information?
Just at Stephanie Filo, I think on all the platforms. Very, very easy.
All right, you guys, you heard it here first. We will talk to you guys later. Stay tuned. Next year's coming very soon. Daredevil season 2. Stand in. All right. Peace, you guys.